I'm the gender hipster. You know what's strangely lacking from trans films? Transgender main characters. This is a symptom of the way that a good deal of films work. The powers that be tend to think of audiences as if they were composed entirely of people who are unable to exercise their imagination, which unfortunately is sometimes true. And so, when it comes to main characters, the people we have to identify with, these people are usually selected to be as bland and uninteresting as possible. And you know who's bland and easy to identify with? Primarily because we're forced to identify with them again and again and again. Straight, white, cis men! It's a lot easier for a filmmaker to tell a story about a minority through the eyes of a majority, whether that's a story about gay rights, civil rights, disabled people, or hell, trans people. Hell, even films about gender hipsters tend to focus on straight, white men who are forced into gender transgression, rather than people who just happen to enjoy it, or who may not be entirely straight. As a consequence, a good deal of transgender films don't have transgender main characters, but are instead about straight, white, male, cis characters reacting to the transgender character in some way, because who'd want to watch a film that didn't have a nice, safe, straight, white guy in it? Well, some people think we're up to the challenge, and so every now and again there comes a film that trusts the audience enough to maybe see the trans person in front of them as a relatable human being, with thoughts and experiences that we can actually identify with. It's a bit of an ask, I know! One of these people is Xavier Dolan, Quebecois director extraordinaire, who decided to take on the task of making a trans film that wasn't about straight white cis guys. And he decided that while he was at it, he may as well make it fucking fabulous. This is Laurence anyways. We start the film with a sudden attack of fever ray as we go into the story of Laurence's life. Laurence Alia is a teacher in Quebec who lives with Fred, a vivacious and somewhat manic woman who shares Laurence's quirky passions. The two are an exciting and interesting couple with strange hobbies, including sitting in car washes and listing things that minimize their pleasure.
Très bien que le chocolat noir, lui aussi, nous enlève beaucoup de plaisir.
Ouais, indice mineur de la nature autodestructrice de l'homme.
Ça ne doit plus arriver. Ça fait partie des listes de choses qui ne doivent plus arriver.
However, the manic pixie dream existence is disturbed when Laurence reveals a personal crisis, something that can no longer be concealed.
C'est très important, faut que ça sorte, faut que je te le dise. J'en peux plus, je vais mourir, Fred. Je vais mourir si je te le dis pas. Écoute. Je vais mourir.
Pourquoi tu m'as pas dit que t'étais homosexuel?
Parce que je suis pas homosexuel.
Pourquoi tu m'as pas dit que t'étais homosexuel? Est-ce que tu m'imaginais en homme?
Je ne suis pas homosexuel, Fred.
Hey, arrête de me niaiser, tabarnak. Laurence, t'es fif. T'es fif, t'es gay, t'es gay. C'est pas la fin du monde, t'es gay.
Ok, Fred, c'est pas que j'aime les hommes. C'est que je suis pas fait pour en être un et c'est différent. Hein? Tu vois, ça, c'est pas moi, ça non plus, c'est pas... Ça non plus, ça me dégoûte, c'est pas moi, ça, Fred. Ça fait 35 ans que je vis comme ça et c'est un crime. Et j'escrime sur la conscience. Et je suis un chien de voler sa vie à cette personne.
Tu voles sa vie, Laurence?
À celle que je suis né pour être.
Funnily enough, Fred is right. Laurence is gay, just not in the way she expects. Let me explain. This movie is more than just a simple trans narrative portraying the perspective of a transgender woman going through her transition. Instead, it's about relationships, the relationship between Laurence and her mother, and the romantic relationship between Laurence and Fred, and how they try to maintain it. Laurence hasn't magically changed her sexuality, nor was she lying about it. She still loves Fred, and the two decide to try and make the relationship work. With Fred's support, Laurence begins to take steps in order to be herself, beginning with a confident march into her workplace, revealing herself to the world. And it's fucking fabulous!
C'est une révolte. Non, sire, c'est une révolution.
Sadly, both Laurence and Fred have some tough times ahead of them. While Laurence's liberal co-workers are very supportive, they bow to pressure from the wider school community, deferring to the wishes of parents and fighting Laurence. Meanwhile, Fred is having difficulties of her own. She sinks into depression and struggles to cope with judgments from her friends, family, and from strangers. While she tries her best to support Laurence, it's still something that's very challenging for her. And when she realizes what Laurence faces on a daily basis, she snaps.
Regarde-moi dans les yeux, regarde-moi quand je te parle. T'as-tu déjà emmagasiné une perruque pour ton chum, toi? Hein? Non, hein? T'as-tu déjà eu peur quand tu sors de chez vous qu'il se fasse tabasser dans la rue puis qu'il te revienne pas en un morceau? Hein? Tu marches-tu dans mes bottes, toi, Chris? T'envies-tu ma vie? Non, je te permets pas de rentrer dans notre vie puis de poser des questions. T'as aucun droit sur moi. Tu n'as pas le droit de nous parler. Tu pognes ton café, tu sers tes assiettes, tu prends ton 2 piastres, puis tu fermes ton hostie.
Laurence encounters a number of different judgments while she transitions. There's the curious judging stares from people on the street, the impolite and disrespectful prying from strangers who demand an explanation for her appearance, and the judgments of family and friends. She manages to avoid life-threatening experiences, but still, there are a few moments when we see her completely justified fear of being put in a threatening and dangerous situation.
Tabarnak, t'as tout un look, toi, Chris?
This scene is the closest we come to a hate crime in the movie, but it portrays an aspect of Laurence's environment rather than drastically changing the course of the narrative. Can it be? A trans film without a fully fledged hate crime? Now, I'm not trying to dismiss Laurence's fear and the frightening and painful result of the violence she suffers, but in terms of trans movies, this attack is relatively mild. Laurence isn't killed, nor is she assaulted sexually, and thankfully her injuries aren't life-threatening. This is not the scene that provides the most conflict, nor does it signify the end of the movie. Instead, it is simply one manifestation of the difficulty Laurence faces on a daily basis, and it provides the catalyst for her to finally meet people who are just like her.
Moi, c'est Simon Belle-Île, by the way.
Laurence Alia.
Appelle-moi Bébé Rose. Je suis plus habitué.
So, Laurence meets a community of gender hipsters who provide support for her throughout the rest of the film. While this is happening, Fred is going through a literal blue period, something she decides to resolve by going to a fabulous party. There, she decides to start an affair. Fred eventually decides to leave Laurence, who has been trying her very hardest to maintain their relationship.
Pourquoi t'es venue comme ça, Laurence? Pourquoi tu me fais ça, là? Pourquoi t'es pas venue normale? Pourquoi t'es pas venue en femme?
Pour te plaire, chérie.
Fred tells Laurence to be herself, but sadly, although Fred has tried, she cannot become queer, and thus can't continue being in a relationship with Laurence. Then the movie gets weird. Well, weirder. We're treated to a random smashing TV, butterflies flapping out of people's mouths, and a Duran Duran montage in Trois-Rivières. Commonly known to be the weirdest city in Quebec? It's a few years later, and Fred has moved on with her life, living with her new husband and her young son in Trois-Rivières. Laurence has taken up with another woman, although the woman doesn't seem to be particularly important to her. Meanwhile, Laurence reconnects with her mother.
De toute façon, je t'ai toujours considérée comme une femme qui était là dans la maison. J'ai jamais eu l'impression que t'étais ma mère.
Et moi, j'ai jamais eu l'impression que t'étais mon fils. Par contre, j'ai l'impression que t'es ma fille.
Laurence has finally managed to publish her book of poetry, something which is sure to be a lucrative enterprise. Because if there's one thing they love in Trois-Rivières, it's poetry? It should be pretty clear by now that I know absolutely nothing about Trois-Rivières. I really should look it up. Huh. Turns out they do love poetry in Trois-Rivières. Well, that was a weirdly accurate guess. Fred receives a copy of Laurence's poetry and correctly interprets it as a sign that the two need to reconnect. This eventuates in the two skipping town and scuttling off to the Isle of Black, a near-mythical place that they've often mentioned. I'm not sure whether the Isle of Black is a real place, but there is one off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, so maybe it's there. While there, Laurence introduces Fred to another couple, one of whom is transgender. Fred questions the nature of their relationship.
Et donc vous êtes ensemble no matter what, hein?
Et toi, Fanny, t'étais lesbienne ou?
Oui, enfin, je suis à la personne. Alors, Alexandre, Alexandra, Alexandrin. Ça suit la logique du cœur pour moi.
Ah bon, pardon.
J'ai pas besoin de me questionner sur le sexe.
On est d'accord que c'est plus facile pour vous quand même. Hein? Parce qu'en fait, ça paraît pas.
Now, sadly, while this does seem like an unnecessarily cruel thing to say, there is some truth to it. For a number of reasons, trans women are a more visible minority than trans men, which, while it means that they're more commonly represented in TV and movies, does mean that they're far more likely to receive negative reactions and violence. However, Fred resents Laurence's attempts to try and rekindle their relationship, as well as her decision to introduce her to another trans person, and decides it would be best if they stopped seeing each other altogether. Later, the two briefly reconnect, and Laurence confesses that she thinks their relationship was doomed to fail from the start.
En fait, d'ailleurs, ce que je regrette, mais ça, c'est un truc que j'ai compris il y a pas si longtemps. Je regrette qu'avant même que je devienne une femme, on était déjà foutus.
Waouh. Explique-moi ça, s'il te plaît.
Mais on était foutus, Fred. Ta famille, ma famille, ton travail, mon travail, nos habitudes, on était foutus. Les gens, ils avaient pas ça. Ils nous enviaient. Et avant même que je sois marginal, on était déjà marginaux.
And thus, we end the movie with a flashback of Laurence meeting Fred for the first time. So, that's the movie, and that's all well and good. But how does Laurence do as a gender hipster? Laurence is fucking fabulous. As a trans woman, Laurence is not necessarily what you would expect. She doesn't change her name or alter her voice, and doesn't want to wear a wig. However, this is very true to life, as there are many different ways in which trans women interpret their femininity. And Laurence, unlike many of the other trans women I've seen on screen, is queer. Just because she identifies as female doesn't mean that she is no longer attracted to women. Although most depictions of trans women feature the women pursuing the romantic attention of men, sometimes aggressively and in a very hypersexualized manner, contrary to popular belief, trans women are more likely to identify as lesbian, queer or bisexual than cis women are. So why is it so rare to see a portrayal of a lesbian trans woman? Society is still struggling to understand trans people. While we're slowly dragging ourselves away from the idea that trans people are universally predatory and villainous, we're still trying to understand trans people in the most simplistic ways possible. This means that trans people are often portrayed as gay people turned up to 11. Gay people who are just so gay that they had to become another gender in order to be gay enough. Now, a lot of trans people are straight, and a lot of them, strangely, have sexual desire and want to pursue romantic relationships. But the constant portrayal of trans women solely as eager seducers of straight men is more than a little silly. Even if the portrayal doesn't treat the trans women in question as deceitful, manipulative liars. Part of this pervasive idea of trans women as women who just want men, and men only, and never seem to have any characterization other than their desire to transition and their desire for straight men, is due to an unfortunate reality of trans life. Transphobia and discrimination is still poisonous and rampant in society, and often isn't even illegal. A good deal of trans people find it hard to get or maintain jobs owing to discrimination in the workplace and no laws against their unfair dismissal. Sadly, for some of these trans people, they are forced to turn to sex work in order to survive. So the portrayal of trans women as insatiably sexual people continues.
Why don't you try and get a regular job?
Well, to tell you the truth, Inspector, I'm not that employable.
So what does any of this have to do with Laurence? By portraying a queer trans woman who is determined to maintain a relationship, and by telling the story through Laurence's eyes, Xavier Dolan makes Laurence into a complex and many-layered character, who doesn't fall into the same trans tropes and stereotypes of countless other depictions. Laurence has desires and a focus in life, and an identity outside of her gender identity. She has complex relationships with her mother, her wife, and her co-workers, which she tries to maintain, while still being true to herself. She's not solely defined by her transition, even if it is an important aspect of her life. Laurence isn't a seducer or a manipulator or even an outcast. She's a person, and her hopes and dreams are just as complex and just as worthy of fulfilling as anyone else's. It's fantastic. This is a phenomenally beautiful film. We're treated to many breathtaking shots, whether of the mundane or the personal or the fantastical. In this film, a bedroom curtain is nearly as awe-inspiring as a club full of beautiful people or a rain of clothing falling from the sky. Xavier Dolan's directorial style in this film is clearly influenced by Kubrick, and the shots share many compositional elements common to Kubrick's films. Elements are centered, there's a lot of tracking shots and deep focus, as well as static shots that allow scenes to unfold while we observe. It sounds technical and dull, but it's the best language I have in order to describe the spectacular. The music is very skillfully woven into the fabric of the film, very much enhancing the mood and portraying the essence of the time. Xavier Dolan, or at least his music supervisor, clearly has a good ear, and the songs add so much. Note to Jacob Tierney, director of Twist, this is how you incorporate music into a film.
Oh my God. There's no stopping you.
Then again, I may be biased, seeing as quite a few of these songs appear in my own music collection, so clearly this is a film that appeals to my tastes. However, it's worth noting that this is a film that makes the 80s look and sound as good as possible. Dolan even manages to make the fashions look exquisite. And with the overstated and garish style of the 80s, that's not exactly easy. Although Fred's jacket is amazing, and anyone who doesn't think so must have a head injury. In some senses, this film functions as a set of music videos stitched together with a plot in the best way possible. Dolan uses some cinematographic techniques one may be more familiar with from the world of music videos, including continuous tracking shots, slow motion, deliberate use of color, and continuous point-of-view shots. These are all used in feature films, but usually aren't as prevalent and deeply incorporated into the story as they are here. I'm reminded a little of other music videos I've seen. Annie Lennox telling the story of a frustrated housewife, or the works of Michel Gondry, or even Dave, the extended tribute to David Bowie, telling the story of his life through song. This style of narrative, of music and beautiful visuals without dialogue, seems to reflect Fred's profession as a director. Throughout the film, we see her directing shoots, mostly advertisements, a form of visual media that relies on presenting a beautiful image and manufacturing an emotion, much like a music video. Which makes sense, as what are music videos if not advertisements for a song? The film even seems to reference the world of visual art. Dolan's beautiful tableaus bring to mind the work of photographer Gregory Crewdson, who constructs images that seem like a moment from a film. Which is a bit confusing in and of itself. Dolan's film looks like photographs that look cinematic. In a more obvious reference, there's a reproduction of the Mona Lisa very prominently placed in the film, which only seems appropriate for a tale about women engaged in a good deal of self-reflection, who feel joy and sorrow at the same time. For the record, the Mona Lisa totally had that expression because she got tired of sitting so still for so long. Yes, if there's one thing I enjoy, it's destroying the mystery of art. This is a director who is clearly very skilled at what he does, and the fact that he was only 25 when he made this film makes me boil with inferiority. So, should you watch it? Fuck yes! Laurence anyways isn't 100% positive. Laurence doesn't get everything she wants. and her transition is difficult both for her and for her mother and wife to understand and to cope with. But it's still an important thing for her to do, and allows her to gain success and confidence in herself.
Big deal, vous êtes confiant?
Non. Non, confiante, non. Déterminée.
The movie represents a complex range of characters who actually have motivations and do things, and while Laurence's life isn't perfect, it's not an awful pile of sadness either. She's portrayed as a character, not merely as a girlfriend for a straight male protagonist, and while she experiences discrimination, it doesn't ruin her life or anyone else's. Everyone survives the movie. Do you know how rare that is for a transgender film? It's rather long, and sometimes its visual style can be a little over the top, leaving your mind in confusion, and it probably won't appeal to those without an eye for the visual and a sense of patience. But oh boy, is this film worth it! With a directing style this beautiful and intriguing, I'm ever so eager to see what Dolan's other films are like. And now, if you'll excuse me, it really is quite cold in here. I think I'm going to go and punch that wardrobe supervisor until they relinquish that jacket.
I'm gonna change my body in the light and the shadow of suspicion. I am no longer afraid. The truth doesn't terrify.